Welcome to Youth Central Sports. I'm Charles Morse, happy to be with you here on a Wednesday evening. And for those who didn't hear us last week and so on and so forth, Happy New Year to you. Hope your holidays was great. And wherever you are, especially if you're on the East Coast, I hope that you are keeping warm. It's a great time of the year, as you know, because we're in the playoffs of the NFL, and for those that's into college and so on and so forth, basketball, that is, coming off a great college that we call national championship game, so on and so forth, wink, wink. And I tease my colleague here, Mr. Vince Carter. And Mr. Carter, how you doing?
On this evening here in late January, mid-January, I guess you'd say. A little cold on this end, but we're still hanging in there.
Okay. You have to tell us where you are. You are where?
I'm in Brentwood, Tennessee. Current temperature, 8 degrees.
8 degrees.
8 degrees.
Well, you know that here in Florida, because it's supposed to actually get down, I would say, supposed to be maybe in the 20s. I'm sorry, the 30s.
30.
The 30s, probably near the Tallahassee area up there, maybe in the 20s. The Pensacola area, probably up there in the 20s. But, here in Florida, they're losing their minds. So with that being said, you know what? I got a couple of things that I want to throw out at you right away. Okay, we're going to talk about the NFL. Okay, we're going to talk about that. I definitely, because there was that last play with that Vikings game. I want to ask you, but I want to get to that later. I just saw on the news, because I tell you about how I think that the college basketball Division I is paper champions, because they sit there and they decide stuff. And to me, the game should be played and all of that should be on the field, and they should come up with a playoff system that's not going to always be fair, but they definitely can come up with one that's better than this one here. Because, and I tell you this, Vince, I keep saying it, for the UCFs of the world, they can go and have the exact same season next year, and guess what? They will not be in that Final Four. They will not. Another team can go on and have another, they can be 12-0. They will not be part of that Final Four. But we will get to that. I just want you to know, guess what they're trying to push through the state? They're trying to push through a tag, UCF national champs. They're trying to push that through.
I'm all for it. I think they should go ahead and do that. This is opportunity to take advantage of a great marketing tool, great state pride, school pride, team pride. Get on it. What the heck? I want it. In fact, I want one.
I'm still working on that shirt for you. Vince said he wants one of those shirts that says UCF national champ. So, and I get, right. I mean, I get the whole concept of the money but the good old boys, it's just old habits are so hard to break, and which is hard to understand, because the money is there, Vince. The money is more money. But whatever that is in their mind, I just don't understand why they can't come up with a system where they can bring in between 10 and 8 teams or something like that. Between 10 and 8 teams, at least 10, right. 8, I don't know, but it's crazy. It's crazy.
Well, you make a good point, because the powers to be have said the same thing. They're saying that what we have now is a result of better than what it was, but not where we want to go. So I guess they're moving in that direction. Meanwhile, a lot of teams get in. Got a lot of teams that are being X'd out. But I think the UCF situation, UCF needs to take full advantage of this opportunity. You were undefeated. I don't care what they say. You had a great season. Capitalize that season. Be what you want to be, because you were undefeated. You're the only undefeated team in the country. Go for it. So until some other system comes up better than that, which supposedly they're going to, but it's hard. I'll be honest, it's going to be very difficult to do, but I think it has to be done.
Well, I'm not necessarily rooting for UCF being not. I'm not, I'm not necessarily a UCF fan, but I
Mm-hmm.
just the system itself, and I'm still trying to figure out that knucklehead that turned down the opportunity for ESPN, Dan Lebatard to come there, and Stugotz could come there and do that. I still don't understand that stupid, whatever that
Well,
is. That's that's
that
that's
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 I
crazy.
bet you 101 that's compliance. That's compliance department feeling, because that's a very touchy area. But given the circumstances, and I don't work in compliance. I never have. I've had very limited exposure to the compliance department and what they do. But this is a great marketing opportunity. I really don't see the harm. But I yield to them. That's what they do. But for me, being a marketer, that would have been a great marketing tool for the school. Also, and what they may have felt that, and I don't know their opportunity, but you, I mean, are you recruiting? Sure. When you put your records up, anytime you keep score of an activity that you've done, you're marketing. You're saying mine is better than this other school. We got a better program. That's marketing to me. That's unfair, not unfair, but that's an advantage over the next team. So I don't see how that could have been an issue. But however, whatever it is, I agree with you. It's an unusual decision, but UCF, go UCF.
Wow. Couple of things. Did you see? I don't know if you saw the game on TNT where Houston was playing the Clippers. Did you see that game with
I
Houston?
did not see the game. I've seen the excitement around the game, but I have not seen the game. I did not get a chance to see the game, but I did see the excitement. The
Now,
ending of the game. In fact, there were a couple of incidences that they showed that took place throughout the game that I think that led up to that. But yes, so no, I did not actually see the game.
okay, before we talk about that, did you see what happened in the Magic game? Did you see what happened
No,
in the
no,
Magic
no,
game? Huh?
no, I did not see that one either. I missed that as well.
Well,
So
yeah,
what did
well,
track? I'm sorry. What did the Magic do?
yeah, one of the Magic players, and when I say that he threw a serious what they call a haymaker, he threw
Mm-hmm.
one, Vince. I mean, I don't I mean, but that these guys don't know how to fight, right? Because I mean, it was a wild punch. It went high. It was wild. An easy punch to block and all that other stuff. But the interesting thing about it was the guy that he threw the punch at, the guy on the Magic team, his first name is Aaron. I don't, because I'm always saying I don't know none of the Magic players, and the only reason, and I think the guy name is Gordon. I think that's his name that
Yeah,
was in the dunk
Aaron
contest.
Gordon. Yeah,
That's his
Aaron
name,
Gordon. I think it is. I
right?
believe so.
And that's the only reason that I know who he is because he was in the dunk contest, and I say he should have won it. But
Mm-hmm.
he's the only one that I know by name. Now the other guy, I think his first name is Aaron, and something happened, and it's a foreign player. He's about 7 feet tall. That the opposite team, and I mean he threw a serious punch at him, and the guy that he threw the punch at, he basically just grabbed him and kind of put him in a headlock to keep him from throwing another punch, and he got thrown out, and he didn't even do anything. Okay, so which is
I,
I
I,
don't know
I
why they
saw
do
that.
that because that happens all the time. You know,
Um,
it's just strange that the guy that throws the punch, now you supposedly in a fight that you don't throw a punch and all you do is grab the guy and hold on to him to keep him from throwing another punch. And now you get thrown out too.
I did see. I saw that on Sports Center, and some of the challenges of that is the way the rules are set up. Throwing a punch is one thing. Making contact with the opposite player is yet another. So if he threw the punch and he did not make contact, but the other guy grabbed him, it can be perceived that the second player has actually executed the foul because he actually touched him. Now, obviously, he's trying to protect himself from being hit, but the rules clearly state. Now, if you throw the punch and you connect, that the guy that threw the punch has the penalty. But if you throw it and don't connect, you actually haven't done anything but given off frustration. But the fact that he grabbed him and then grabbed him in a headlock the way he did, I believe the rules interpret him as having made a foul. Now, that makes sense. Well, in the sense of the rule, it does, but in the sense of life, no, that does not make any sense. Because the guy, in my mind, if I'm the official, I think I swallowed the whistle because he was attempting to protect himself.
Oh, well, yeah.
It's just like if you touch the official, that's a foul.
Right.
Regardless of whether you were trying to tap him on the shoulder or whether you were trying to do anything to him, he is not to be touched. So the rule has to be, and they interpret the rule by the rule itself. So I guess correct. I mean, again, I'm thinking you swallowed the whistle on that, but that was so obvious because he did grab him. So that's what I'm thinking is why they did that.
Okay. Now the Clippers Houston game, Charles Barkley and Shaq, they was laughing so hard. I mean, they were almost on the floor laughing. The fact that I guess is Aries was upset at Doc's son.
Supposedly, Doc's son really, from the account that I got, and I was reading some of the reports and stuff, and they're saying this really from him. He was on the sideline.
Right. He was in street clothes.
But he was running. And I don't know whether it started from conversation on the sideline or that's some bad blood from before, because a lot of the talking heads are saying now that it becomes obvious why Chris Paul left. There was a beef going on there, perhaps between him and Blake and Austin and Doc, because you notice in all of this, because Blake was arguing at D'Antonio. They were into an argument, but you never saw Doc involved in any of that. And it is and so much that this is probably some kind of confirmation that there's been a beef going on there, and it came out during this episode. Because these guys went to the locker room.
Yeah, I was going to get to that. Right? Yeah, right.
But you started there, though.
But see, the funny thing, Vince, is that there's always these reports, and you don't know what to believe or how to believe. When those reports come out, because for a long time they were talking about how Blake was not getting along with Chris Paul, but you don't know whether or not that's because when you see them out on the court, they play, blah, 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 and you hear about all this beef and all this other stuff, but you can tell because, and I know you didn't see the game, but there was a couple of times when Blake and Chris Paul, they kind of got into it a little bit, and like you can tell that Blake said something to him. Chris Paul had the ball one time. He went and just hit the ball out of his hand and walked away from him, and so it's kind of like, oh well, maybe some of that stuff is true that you had been hearing for the past couple of years about how they had been beef. They got this thing going on. But
you also have to take into account too that, and I would refer us back to thinking about the Magic Johnson, Larry Bird scenario where they fought each other on the court like they hated one another, but they actually were good friends. Same thing with Magic and Isaiah Thomas. I mean, right. Each other out there, but they were friends. Because and Michael Jordan, they had an interview with him the other day, and he talked about being a good friend, but on the court, he was trying to annihilate Charles and anybody else. I have seen that, but it may have been a little extra because of that supposed beef. To the credit of those guys, I think, we always talk about what happens in the locker room should stay in the locker room. And I think they've done a good job of keeping their business to themselves, but it looked like a little bit of it spilled over on the court the other day.
Wow. It was interesting to watch though, Vince, I'm telling you. But the whole thing
the part that I saw.
But the funny thing is, just on the outside looking in, you're wondering what could be so intense with somebody that's sitting on the bench and clothes. You're out on the court, playing, and you wondering what could transpire to build so much animosity that you want to not only after you've taken a shower and put your clothes on, now you want to go into the other team's locker room. You know, like what the heck was going on? What can I say to you, knowing
Oh,
knowing that if you do something like that, which is what has happened, they've been suspended for 2 games, him and Green. You know, so supposedly
Ariza,
what?
but none of the other guys, Griffin and Paul, and now there's a lot that could have been said that could have caused that. Now it could have been a follow up from a previous thing, but you sitting on the sideline constantly barking in your ear, and depending upon what he's barking, I see where this could get to be a very volatile situation. And but I do think I would suggest that would also have to be more than just me and you playing them tonight. I think there's some history, and it might have got and it moved over tonight, but I don't think it all just came from just one. Because I know Rivers, and I know how he is as a player. He can be a little antagonizing, but that he's not the only one. He's not the only player out there that can do that. And then, but I do. They always said that there was a little the concern there, and it spilled over. But especially for him, because he could have been saying some things that really could have got under their skin. And
yeah, but I mean, but what I'm saying, Vince, at some point in time, why are you even listening to what he's saying? You know what I'm saying? You know,
because it's not.
Like,
but it's not night now. I'm not talking about that's some carryover. That's what I believe. I don't believe it's just what he said now. I think it's just a continuation of the things that you've said before, and I just haven't been in your presence. And now I'm in your presence, and you're right through the next door. Yeah, I'm going over there and straighten that out. Now, is that sensible? No, it's not sensible. It's really not sensible. But I understand, though. Don't get me wrong. I do understand.
Yeah, well, he been docked 2 checks.
Yeah. He can afford it. It's not like he's not going to eat next week. He'll be all right.
Yeah,
he probably won't be able to buy that extra car.
That's just like that brother that plays for the Magic. Because it's funny because when he threw that punch, I said to myself, that brother must not be married, because the wife be going like, "What are you doing?"
Well, he's fortunate that because I'm telling you, he connects that. It gets to be a real problem. So
right.
He's fortunate that he was unable to connect. Now he's going to be embarrassed too because he didn't connect. He threw a good punch.
Yeah, but like you said, according to what was said on ESPN, there was supposed to be a back way.
Yes.
Into the locker rooms,
right.
that I guess that Chris Paul definitely would know about. And that you could go the back way and no one would see you, like the reporters and blah, 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 blah. And supposedly, I guess Chris Paul and James Harden was trying to defuse the situation, supposedly. But Green from Houston and Ariza is suspended for two games. Because they went to the locker room, but nobody else had any fines or anything like that.
The cloud over Chris Paul that they're talking about too is being that he's a player representative, and I think that may have been why he was trying to defuse the locker room situation, is because he knew then this has gone too far. It's one thing for us to get excited on the court, and that's just a part of the game, a real part of the game. And I think his attitude out there, he was being a player, but in the locker room, I think he was trying to be player representative and trying to stop those guys from going in there and creating a bigger mess than it had to be. Again, they put a lot of pressure on Chris because he's a lead representative for the players and what kind of action. But they forget he's human first. He's a player second, and then he's a player rep third. So you got to go through those emotions. But I think he was trying to help him out, saying, "Guys, don't go in there." But they obviously they weren't listening, and they went in there anyway. So Interesting situation.
I
And I
wanted.
would
I
say
mean,
this, Charles, I want you to notice too, you seem to be having more on-court incidences lately within this year, more so
mhm.
so far this year than ever before. This stuff is really spilling over. Now, I'm sure there's a challenge at the NBA referees, the guys, you got to get control of these games earlier. You got to throw out some severe penalties to get some people's attention earlier in order to stop this. Because I'm seeing more and more. At least I'm noticing, and at least in my perspective, I'm seeing more and more on-court incidences, and this could lead to some very serious injuries because those guys are unprotected out there. And you're talking about an elbow here and an elbow there. We're all having an enormous amount of injuries due to just physical exertion and just the fact, there's something about the schedule, back-to-backs, number of games played, and all of that. And now we're going to get real physical with it. You got to be careful about that. So I'm a little bit concerned, and maybe I'm unjustified, but I'm a little bit concerned because I'm seeing more and more flare-ups and more tempers out there on the floor. You're going to catch somebody by saying, I've seen a couple of referees get run over out there because of the activity. And these guys are trying to jump in there and stop 6'8", 6'9" guys, 200 or 300 pounds. And these little guys, the referees, most of your referees aren't that big. And some of them got a little age on them at that. So they can't afford to be jumping at those guys. They get hurt. So that's a concern I have, but it may be premature. It may just be my perspective, but I'm seeing a little bit more than I've seen before.
All right. Before we get into the NFL, I ask you a couple of questions about the teams that are left and the games that were played last week. What's big in the news, and I guess what's been happening in the country now when it comes to the sexual abuse and things that's been transpiring, and that's been part of the headlines. This Olympic doctor, this I don't, and see, Vince, the what gets me in this country is like, for an example, what's the gentleman from Penn State?
Sandusky? No, not Sandusky.
Yeah,
Sandusky.
yeah. For an example, like him and this doctor, what gets me is that the conversation is like they're normal people, because when you do stuff like that, there's something wrong with you mentally. But in our country, in our society, if you have money, if you have a degree or something like that, and high up as far as your education and academics, then they try to put you in this place where you supposed to be this in this society. But then they look at the money, they look at how you living, and I'm not making excuses for anybody, but there is something wrong with you. There's something mentally wrong with you. There's something wrong. Now, it's just sad that something like that, as far as the Olympic coach, because when you think of those little young girls, you and I can have this conversation because we know who Gabby is. We don't know her, but we know who Gabby is. And then, and all these other young girls, and then whatever that is, you can't tell me that that's anything normal, period. He's sick. He's sick. And that's, I mean, what do you say? I mean, of course, this man is going to spend time. He's going to probably die in prison. And it's not I'm not talking about anything but other than a mental illness. And we don't deal with that very well in this society, period, because of the homelessness, and how we put people in prison, dealing with mental illness, because we don't know how to deal with people. Because it's easy to shoot them up and drug them and put them away. And I'm not trying to make an excuse for this guy, but there's something wrong with him.
Well, there's long been a history of dealing with mental health. I mean, the mental health industry has been fighting for recognition of what this really is. It's not something that's a rarity. It's something unusual. It's more common than we know. And I, having worked in behavioral health, can attest to the fact that it's more of it than it's more normal than we did. And I think sometimes we don't know how to recognize it. I think we're getting better at recognizing, being able to diagnose it and treat it. But the early parts of it, sometimes we don't know what we're looking at. We're talking about people's behavior and habits, and we're thinking they're okay. And sometimes they don't exhibit the all-out symptom. The thing in this particular case with the Olympic doctor, I'm wondering, yet we've only heard from Gabby, and I'm sure she wasn't the only one. How many more are we going to hear from?
No. There's Vince. There's like 160.
That's what I'm saying. They have not come out and told the story that she's told.
Oh,
So we
okay.
know that there are others. What I'm saying. So now here's the other thing that's a challenge for me. Just like the Sandusky case, who else knew? Someone else knew. They may not have fully had an understanding, but they knew something wasn't right. And what we typically don't do is express that concern, because he's a good friend, he's a good doctor, he's doing a good deed. So I don't know, maybe I got it wrong. I don't want to say anything. I wanted to say anything to him, to challenge him about, hey man, what are you doing? So because we can go on a tangent sometime and be wrong, but I wonder which is worse, thinking I got it wrong or knowing I got it right and don't say anything. So if someone had approached him or made this allegation 500 or 50 girls earlier, would the other girls have had to suffer? Because somebody saw this, somebody was aware of this, but maybe they didn't want to believe it. It's just like child molestation, is just domestic violence. We see the signs, but we ignore them. We say, well, it can't be that. He's a nice guy. He doesn't exhibit any symptoms. So what are the symptoms? I mean, what does he wear a stick on his head and say, hey, watch me now, because I'm going to do something real stupid? That's not the case. You have to, that's why more training, more parents need to be more aware. Kid, you got to build that trust with that child, that you tell the truth. You go in there and he does something on you, and you need to tell somebody, because it could have been a one-time incident, or it could be a pattern of a behavior. So that's a real challenge for us. And then when you put it around mental health, we're real skittish about, it's two things in this country we struggle with that we cannot identify, and we don't want to identify: mental health and racism. We stay away from those two things. We are scared to identify them. We are scared to associate with them, and we just run from it. And then when it happens, we say, ooh, that is so bad. Well, it is bad. And it gets worse because we don't do anything about it. So because mental health is really a serious concern, which mental health, sometimes racism, they are one and the same. They become one and the same, and so we don't do well with that. We don't do well in this country, and I would dare say maybe this world. Those are two things that we struggle with.
Well, definitely, the prison system is full of people who just need help. It's
Yes,
easier to lock them up than to
it
say
is.
that I need to take the time to find out what's really wrong. But it's just easier to dope them and lock them up.
But y'all, the thing sometimes that I question sometimes is you put 20 of them in a room together, you got the same problem. Now they chewing on each other now. I mean, you saved society maybe, but you haven't solved the problem. You just put them in the same room. And I think as a country, we want to rehabilitate where we can, when we can. Can we save them all? No, you can't stop everybody from drinking. You can't stop everybody from using drugs. You can't stop people from violent crime. Not everybody, but we need to make a serious attempt to do that through legislations and education, and the way that we handle our judicial system to try to get help. Incarcerating them doesn't really help sometimes, because you just put them, again, you put them in there. You take a young pedophile and put him in with a seasoned pedophile. What do you have? A mature pedophile. So we haven't helped the problem at all. So I don't want to go too far on that, because we are talking about sports, but that's a part of the sports landscape now. We're starting to hear more and more of that.
but Vince, that's just as much part of sports. I mean, what we're talking about is just as much part of sports as part of the world, because the reality of it is it's a major problem.
Oh, it
It's
is.
a major
Without
problem.
doubt.
You know, and
And,
then
and, and
yeah,
what we're not hearing, Charles, is what we're starting to hear, and look at the kids that's being from adults to these middle aged kids or teenagers, if you will. But I would assure you, and this is a statistic that I hope that I'm wrong. It's happening at younger ages as well. These kids just don't know yet that I need to tell somebody about this because they've been convinced this is normal, this is okay because I'm striving to reach a higher height of my athleticism and in my craft. So this goes along with it. Well, it does not, as we know. So more attention, more education, more vetting, more background screening. That we need to be very careful about the people that we put in front of our children.
okay, you know, starting next month, I'm going to ask you, do you watch the Winter Olympics? Are you a fan of the Winter Olympics?
To some degree, I do because I love sport, and so I try to put myself in front of. I enjoy the Summer Olympics better. I can relate better to some of the activities, but I'm learning to appreciate more of the winter sports. So I will look at it. Yes, I will be involved. Bobsledding catches my imagination for some reason, and jumping off of that ski thing kind of get. I'm trying to understand the psyche, what would make you want to do that. But bobsledding really grabs my attention, and the skating is interesting too. So yeah, I kind of get into that.
Yeah. Well, you're watching Youth Central Sports, and for those that are on Facebook, you can always leave a comment. And for those that are on YouTube, you make sure you subscribe and you hit the like button on both Facebook and on YouTube. So I'm Charles Morse, and this is who I call the man, the original Coach Carter.
And then
And
I
now,
told I told I told Coach Carter that he's more recognizable than I am, but I'm older. I was here first.
well, actually, Vince, you know, won't you tell us how you came in contact with, and tell us how you had him come and speak at your event, because he's a very fascinating guy. He's real funny too. So won't you tell us how
Yeah.
you made that happen?
You know, and when we were doing our midnight basketball annual awards banquet, we were sitting down trying to come up with a speaker, and I had just recently seen the Coach Carter story for the fifth time. And I was looking at it, and I thought, wouldn't it be, and I kind of made a joke about, wouldn't it be nice to get him here, my namesake, so to speak, and bring him in. And right after that, I met a person who had a personal contact with him, and said, and I mentioned it to him, and they said, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yeah." He said, well, "Hold on just a minute." And I wasn't aware of the fact that he was calling him while I was standing there, and he called him and made contact and told me, he said, "Hold on," and he gave me the phone. He said, "This is Coach Carter." So I thought he was telling that person that I was Coach Carter. And when he was telling me, "This is Coach Carter that you were talking about, the original Coach Carter, the famous one, if you will." So we got on the phone and had a chit chat, and we followed up with it. And I invited him, and he accepted the invitation. He came down and spoke at our banquet. I had a chance to spend 3 days with him. He is absolutely hilarious. He has some stories that he can tell, and he's a basketball guy. He really is. And he told me something that was fascinating, that the story that we saw on television was 95% true. There are a couple of things that were they had to change, but it was 95% true. And it was just fascinating to sit and talk with him about his experience. And at the time, I was coaching at Boone High School, and we took him by him there and watched the guys practice, and he had a couple of minutes with them. He's fascinating. He loves the game. He's a product of his environment. He's a shadow environment. He come out the hood. He know how to handle the hood, and he handles the hood very well. But he dressed the hood up when he needs to. He's an interesting person. He's dynamic in his presentation. He's very real at it, but he's funny as all get out those. And we still communicate from time to time. He told me that he said, "You might be the original, but I'm the most famous of the two." I said, "I agree with you on that. I agree with you on that at this point."
Right. You know, I mean, he was easy to talk to because, we sat and we talked for a
Yes.
while, and he shared some things, and he was asking Ken and I about what we do. And he and he said something, because he looked at the setup, and he said, I've been all around the world. I do a lot of stuff in California and everywhere. And he said, you guys setup is just as good as anybody that I've seen when I go and I do what, I do. So, just keep up the good work. And he was just trying to be encouraging, just trying to say, hey, just if you want to go higher, then that's totally up to you, is what he was trying to
Right.
say to us.
Yeah, he was very complimentary of the event itself, the crowd that we have, the mixture of people that was there. He looked at our mission and what we had accomplished, and he was very complimentary of that. He really, I'm sometimes amazed at what people were thinking when we invite them. Did you think this was a mom pop operation? Maybe we were rookies at what we were doing, but he walked in impressed, and I remember him challenging Fran to sell her CDs. That she should be out there selling those CDs after he heard her sing. So, and a lot of people who had a chance to interact and buy his that he had out there and just interact with him just really came away really impressed with him. It was a great event. And I still, as I said, I still talk to him from time to time. He talked to me about coming back. And I said, yeah, we'd look at that. Unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to do that, but we still chit chat. And he's in and out of Florida quite frequently.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now I want to ask you something. It's it's funny, Vince, because now it's certain times when I see certain things, and you're the first person that comes to my mind. Okay. First of all, before I ask you this question, what did you think of the games this past weekend? Did did you expect Jacksonville Jaguars to go into Pittsburgh and give them a game? Now, how did you mean? What the heck happened? Let me ask you, what happened? Please tell me what happened.
I wish if I could accurately describe that, I'd probably be a millionaire next week, because I would have predicted this. I've been able to get into the psyche. To be honest with you, Chuck, I really don't know. I saw the game and I was absolutely surprised at the efficiency of Blake Bortles. He has been struggling throughout the season. He'd had up and down, but he came in and put a solid performance, I thought, out there to win. Now, there were some questionable calls in Pittsburgh from their coaching staff, and I understand now they've replaced the offensive coordinator and they're calling for Tomlinson's head, which I don't really think is I don't know. I'm not really a Pittsburgh guy, but I think overall he has done a decent job. And yeah, it looked like to me they made some mistakes, but some of that comes from bad coaching, bad calling, and then bad execution on the field. But they just I'm shocked. I mean, I'm excited for a Florida team. I'm excited for Bortles because I followed him a little bit at UCF when he was there. And he had been up and down struggling throughout the year, but he put a solid performance together that day. Shocked. Now, my Steeler Nation friends, they're so shocked right now they still can't talk about it. I called a couple to offer my condolences, and they said, "Listen, call me next week. I can't talk about it right now." So I said, "Well, I understand. I'm a Cowboy fan, so I know what it's like to do. You got to have that mourning period." But they're shocked. They just can't believe it. And I talked to one yesterday, and his complaint was that some of the calls that the coaching staff made, which a couple of them I questioned myself. But so I'm shocked. I mean, I'm excited. And I tell you something else that I like is that, like, when the Saints lost to Minnesota, I think it's nice to have the changing of the guard. You don't have your normal teams, and you expect the Saints to be there. You expect Pittsburgh, and you have high expectation that New England will be there as well. It's kind of nice to have a change, if you will. And I'm really interested to see what will happen with New England, but because they're again, as I said, I'll say it again, there's some crack in their armor, but they're known to come together and play. They may be a different team after this year. There may be some changes up there because I think they're losing a couple of coordinators. There's some conversation that Belichick may be leaving and so on and so forth. But I like Minnesota being in there. I'm liking Jacksonville in there. I think it just adds different flavor to the playoffs. Because in a sense, and others have said this, and I didn't agree at the time, but it kind of gets boring because you see the same teams all the time. But then I have a great respect for superiority. If you can do it better than the other guy, then you do it better than the other guy. Same thing they were saying about Alabama. You know, why we don't want to see them there again. But so you got to stop them.
Right.
You got to keep them from going. If you can't stop them from going, then you're going to get the same results. So this is interesting.
Well, the Jacksonville Steelers game, the thing is that you just kept waiting for Jacksonville to fold.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, you just kept waiting, and you just kept waiting, and then like they would make a play, you go like, whoa, okay, and then and it came close again. You go like, okay, now they gonna fold. They gonna do the typical Jacksonville thing. They gonna find a way to make sure that they home next week, and then like you go like, whoa, okay. Now they keep talking about that Jacksonville defense. They keep talking about it's one of the best in the league. And I heard a couple of guys talking on the sports radio saying that their challenge is to try to up the offense, because generally what happens with the team that usually have a defense like that defense only lasts about 2 or 3 years to that magnitude. So they have a short window within the next year or two to try to bring that offense up to match that defense to give them a legitimate chance to win the Super Bowl. So that's what the talk is.
The challenge with that too is contracts, caps, and then age, and then maturity and experience. So I have the same thing, and I appreciate that as a dynamic that you have to deal with, because that defense, like for instance, the Cowboys have a very young defense now. They went young and they performed well. They got to go back and look at the offense and say, okay, I got to upgrade my offensive line now, because they're getting a little bit older, and that's kind of what they're talking about. Because Jacksonville has really bum defense. Now you got to help the offense. So the offense has got so they can all max out, because that's what your Patriots have. That's what the Steelers had. You had those strong offense-defense situations where your offense was strong, your defense is strong, it's healthy, it's mature, and you can get out there and play, and one gives the other the ball, and so on and so forth. Jacksonville, and plus Bortles again had been struggling back. He'd make some bad calls here, or execution. Let me put it that way. But here he looked first class the other day.
I'm serious. I mean, because you kept waiting for that play. Go like, well, that's that's what he gonna do.
I wait for throw an interception or fumble the ball or do something. I just kept sitting on the edge of my chest saying, okay, Jackson, you look good. So when you gonna blow up? When you gonna blow up? But they didn't. They never did. They stayed in. Great motive. Now the concern I would have is, can you play like that 2 more times?
Well, see, but now I don't know football the way you know football. I mean, I know athleticism when I see it. Mm-hmm. Vince, I know effort when I see it. Okay, yeah. I know the approach to the game, and because when you play the game a certain way, that's just like the best way I can say it is that, like, when you played basketball, Vince, and when you went out and let's just say you went to one of the parks, and within a minute, whether or not you got somebody in front of you that could play, or somebody that go like, I mean, you know what I'm saying? It only takes a minute, so
that's all it takes.
Whether or not you got somebody in front of you that's going to give you some competition, or this, I got this. So so when you watch certain players, or when you don't know players, and when you watch them play, there's certain things that you may look for that the average person might not look for. So when it comes to athletes and just competing, you're sitting there and you watch how they do what they do. You watch the attitude, da da da. And so what I'm saying is that when you're hoping that Jacksonville can go up to New England, because I've seen what Belichick. Well, I saw what he did to Peyton, and it blew my mind. What he did to Peyton, it just blew my mind. I was like, wow, because he made Peyton look like a rookie
Mm-hmm.
in one of those games, in one of the playoff games a few years ago. And I'm
Right.
like, how do you do that? How do you do that?
Well, in Belichick's case, and as in all coaches' case, the biggest part of this now, yeah, players have to be motivated. You shouldn't have to motivate them now because you're deep into the playoffs. You're at a place you haven't been before. This was your goal at starting of training camp. Now it comes down to preparation and coaching. How do you? The coaches have probably it's not X's and O's right now. It's about attitude and behavior and consistency and rudimentary what we do, how we prepare. You don't want to make it bigger than it is, but it's routine work. We got to look at our key points. What's our game plan? How do we execute? How do they execute? What are we looking for? And not overemphasizing it, but again looking at how important it is. So this is a true challenge for Belichick. This is routine work, but for the coaches coming in, this is new for Jacksonville. He's got extra work to put in, more than just looking at scheme and game plan and looking at film. He's got to work on attitude, behavior of these guys, because it waters for some of them. And some of them are going to be overly excited about the opportunities. And you've got to manage that as well as you've got to manage the game. So it's a challenge. It can be done. Now, the experience of the team makes a big difference. Those players that have been around, they can be a big help now because they especially guys on the offensive line, defensive line, backs, wherever they're playing, that your teammate cannot keep you calm. It's just a regular. I'll give you an example that I experienced in coaching. I was coaching YBOA basketball championship game, and one of my assistants came to me in the middle of warm-ups, and he said, he said, I see you being a little wide-eyed. I said, yeah. He said, listen, it's just another basketball game. It's just another basketball game. And just him saying that helped me to calm down and realize it's just another game.
Well,
It's just another basketball game.
Well, that was my next question that I was going to ask you because, I mean, I can remember being a young player, and sometimes you can be easily intimidated by the size, what you think you see. What you
Right.
think you see, because you see the other team come out, and you can be like, okay, there's somebody 6'7", he look, but so it's you're young, and you can, you got this stuff going on in your head. But my question that I would like to ask you as a coach, when you're coaching, how do you handle just trying to get inside their heads, to not let something like what I'm talking about get inside their heads when they're young and they looking over? Like I can remember, and I want to ask Oliver this. I can remember, and I don't know if he would remember this game, but they were playing against Pensacola, Washington, and they had a team that coach had basically 15 players that he played. So he would put in 5, and then he would take out a 5, and he would put in another 5. But I'm saying the rotation that he had, you notice that's very unusual, that you would just take 1 5 out and put another 5 in and put another. So he had 15 players that he was rotating. 5 at a time. And I'm sitting there going like, wow, because you don't see that often. And so it's stuff like that. And it's funny because I had talked with Ali, Goodman after that game. And then he said, because I said something like, hey man, those guys from Pensacola, man, I mean, he was playing everybody. And he said like, so? He didn't say it that way, but he acknowledged that he saw that, but he was trying to say they still was not better than us because D-Land still won the game is what I'm saying. But it's stuff like that as a young player. But I wanted to ask you, as a coach, how do you, for an example, deal with like, for an example, Lake City, and I don't know if you know this, but Lake City Community College is considered like Duke in junior college
Mm-hmm.
basketball. When you go play
Mm-hmm.
there, that's just like being at Duke or North Carolina. That place is crazy, and those fans are just
Mm-hmm.
like, I mean, how the fans are at Duke and just crazy and it's loud and they get uproar and it's like they love their basketball team there. So it's a totally different environment than we had ever played in ever. So from a mental standpoint, and if you as a coach don't prepare yourself, explain this stuff, and you just walk into that gym, you'll be like this if you never
Mm-hmm.
experienced that before. And I don't know if I've asked too many questions, but I mean, do you understand what I'm trying to ask you?
Yeah, and I 100% understand it because I faced that, and I think you started that from day one. You don't wait till the preparation before that particular game. You're talking mental toughness, being focused, attention to detail. Yards early. That's pre. That's when we pick the team. That becomes a conversation that we have because you are in essence preparing them then for a game like that. You don't know if you'll actually get to one of those games. They're in your schedule early, or maybe you got into the playoffs and you run up against them. You prepare from day one. How you prepare them each and every day when they come out to practice, you have that kind of focus. I don't care if I'm playing against a 1-15 team or a 15-1 team. My approach is the same. Uh, we've got to go out and play, do our thing, do it the way we do it. We got to make sure we hit our game strategy, our key marks, but we do what we do. That starts early, and I think a lot of time players react to where their coaches react. If the coach is calm and definite on point, they play that way. If you become excited, you lose your confidence, and they don't see that you're confident, that you don't believe that we're down by 10, but we can come back and win. How many times have you seen that? And a lot of time people say, man, that's great coaching. It is, but it's not always X's and O's. It's about confidence. It's about him believing in them and them believing in him and saying, he said we can do this. So that starts day one. That's when you get in that athlete's head the first day. And the way I approach that is first day. I get you to understand the first day what I want. And I'm not going to accept anything less than that. And I demand that every day. Every day we keep reinforcing that till it becomes your mindset. And then when you walk out there and you be wide-eyed, saying, man, I've never played in an arena this size before. And look at those guys. And then as soon as you hear my voice, you say, okay, it's just business as usual. Because I come in and say the same thing I've been saying for the last 27 weeks, 57 weeks based on preseason and practice and all that. You hear it every day. And my actions are the same. Our routine is the same. A game pregame is the same. Everything is the same. You don't know it's a big game until I tell you it's a big game. So I think it's a lot of preparation that goes into that. Then we get down to the actual game plan where you've got to adjust to whatever you're facing. So it's a lot of that, and that's a lot of relationship building. That's why I think relationships in sport is so important. That this kid believes you. He's looking at this and saying, that guy is 7 foot and telling me I can block his shot. You can block his shot. Trust me, you can do this. And he'll go out there, and if he can't block it, he's going to certainly try. He believes in it, and he'll play that way. So this is the challenge that I think Jacksonville is facing, is just convincing them we're going to go do what we do. We're going to have to now. Not only do we have to worry about what Tom Brady going to do, they got to worry about what Blake Bortles going to do. You know, so now, and Belichick is a mastermind at that, but I think, you know, it's the other coach has to do that. He has to do exactly. So I think that's how you do that. You get in that head very early, and that started way back in preseason, way back in summer workouts, that you challenge those guys to give you their best every day. And when they get on that floor, they'll do that out of routine. One of my famous, not famous, but one of my favorite sayings is you play the way you practice. You play the way you practice. If you practice hard, you'll play hard.
I wanted to save this for last, Vince. I wanted to save this for last. Number 43 for the Saints. I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to understand. Okay, I'm trying so hard to understand. I don't know how. I don't even know where to begin to try to see what he saw. I don't know what goes through your mind. I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And when I saw it, Vince, he was so far off that there's really nothing you can say but other than I said Stevie Wonder could have been closer than what he was on that play. Vince, he was so far off from whatever he guessed, whatever he was trying to do. And I'm not trying to knock him. I'm just trying to understand what that was. I mean, but and actually, I don't even think it has to do with the fact that you play football. It's just a matter of the perception and where you think you are, and you trying to. It's obvious that he should have played the player versus trying to play the ball, but I don't even know if he was trying to play the ball or trying to play the play. I don't know what he was doing. Can you?
Now you're
help
talking
me?
about the touchdown play.
Right, exactly.
Well, according to the talking heads and some coaches that I listened to, and they were saying, which I kind of understand, he was trying not to commit at the time. That it wasn't a given that he was going to make that play. So what the defense was trying not to do is to get a pass interference and give them that extra yardage. So he was trying not to interfere. He was doing his best to stay away from him, thinking that he wasn't going to make the play. He didn't want to get a pass interference. And so he gave up. He made sure he got out the way. And this kid made an absolutely fantastic, unbelievable catch and scored a touchdown. Now, in hindsight, you can say you should have gone ahead and made the contact. Well, yeah, you could say that, but that's not what he was taught to do. I'm sure when they told him in the huddle, just don't make it easy for him. Don't help him, make him earn it. Well, this is the case in point where the kid earned it. He made a fantastic shot. He got it. And now they look back and they're beating him up, but it really wasn't his fault. He did the right thing if that's what his coach wanted him to do.
Okay.
Because you got to ask. I mean, you got to ask the coach. Coach, would you prefer that he create the pass interference, which he would say no. We thought we had good coverage. I would prefer, they're thinking this kid wasn't going to make that play. Well, he got out the way to make sure that he didn't create that. Now, if that was the game plan, he did it right. If that wasn't the game plan, he'll be shipped out sometime this week. but according to what he'll be gone. But according to what I've been told, he did what the coaches.
See, now I don't have to tell you. I do not have to tell you. It's some crazy fans out there, right? It's some crazy fans out there, right? It's some crazy fans out there. Man, if you go on YouTube, if you go on YouTube and listen to the Saints fans and the comments that they were making, it's like, man.
And I understand from a fan perspective, you're looking to win. And I think what coach was trying to do was coach to win too. And it's the mechanic of that game and how you look at that game is totally different. And if that was their game strategy, which according to what I've been told and read, when I'm saying what I've read, that was probably one of the things they were saying is don't get a pass interference. Don't make it easy for him and help him. Make him make a play. Well, he made a play. and so now it makes the kid look like he did the wrong thing, and I'm sure he's taking a beating for it. But in essence, he did probably what he was instructed to do, given that parameter. Now, would you prefer that he made the pass interference, give him the ball in that, and then they still scored? Then they've been mad at that. You should have just let it go. It's hard. Situation.
Well, actually, Vince, what it was he just looked so bad on the play. That's what it was. Because,
he looked bad on the play.
Right. I'm saying all of that could be true, but just from looking at that play, that time, and and the results of that play. If it had been in preseason, it wouldn't have been no big deal. but he just looks so bad on that play. You know what I'm saying? He looked bad.
Well, tough situation for a young man to be in, and I feel sorry for him. But oh well, it's over now. It nothing they can say about it now. It's over now, and we'll see you next year.
Yeah, well, uh, I don't know. So, give me your results. I see you trying to plug
Hold on.
your
Yeah, I'm running out of.
yeah. Well,
I'm
give
about to
me
run out of.
yeah. But give me your results before we end the show. Tell me your results of this coming weekend.
Well, I'm gonna be pulling for Jacksonville.
Oh, really?
Don't.
Okay. Well, now, whew, man, I mean, I hope Jacksonville go up there and at least play. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I hope that they go up there and play. That would be really nice if at least they give them a game.
Yes, that's what I'm hoping, that they'll go in and they will compete. Hold on just a second. Oh
Okay.
man, any other
So,
time this would be.
and I'm hoping that that game would give Bartle some, some confidence, and that somebody can be in his ear and tell him that he can play this game, and not be intimidated up there in New England. So
Yeah. Okay. I hope so too. I'm pulling for him, and that he will. Hold on just a second, Charles.
yeah, yeah. Okay. And again, you're watching Youth Central Sports. I'm Charles Morse, talking with the original Coach Carter, the true Coach Carter. And make sure that you like us on Facebook and subscribe here to Youth Central Sports. And you can also like us on YouTube. Subscribe to us on YouTube on Youth Central Sports, and you can like us here on Facebook as well. And I was asking Coach Carter his picks for this coming weekend, and you're hoping that Bartles can go in there with a little confidence and play a tough
Just
game
play.
against those New
Yeah,
England Patriots, right?
yeah. And I'm putting for Minnesota. I'll put him from Minnesota. I want to see Minnesota get there. I'd like to see Jacksonville and Minnesota. Those being mindful that it could go opposite of that, but that's what I'm picking.
What did you think of that? The game that Carolina lost. What did you think of that game? I mean, did we
Only
talk
saw
about that
parts
game?
of that game.
I mean, did
No,
we
we
talk about
did.
that last week?
No, I didn't see all of that game, so I really a little bit disappointed. I really thought Carolina would come out and win that game. I really thought going in that they had what it took to win, but I was a little bit surprised that they weren't able to do it. But I didn't get a chance to see the whole game, so I'm sure I missed an awful lot of what to, because I like to see the game from start to finish to kind of get an added behavior of how things were going on, accumulate my own behavior about things I thought that may have happened. That because a lot of times it's so much of that's behavior as much as it is X and O's, it's attitude, it's coaching and preparation, and I didn't get a chance to see it all, so I don't really know, but I'm disappointed that they weren't able to do better because I really like that coach, and he just got his contract extended. It would have been so great for him to go on and play in the playoff. Plus, I like the quarterback. He's a little flamboyant and thing, but he's played well enough to get to that next level. But oh well, next year.
Well, the thing is, that's part of sports. That's part of football. I wonder what Philly would be like if they had not lost their starting quarterback. I wonder what they would, I wonder what they would be like if they had, lost him.
I'll be honest with you. In my estimation, boy, they were rolling with him. They haven't done bad with this guy here, but they would have been so much more potent and dangerous with him. because he had been there all season, and that was, that's your starting group, and they've been together, they work together, they know each other. They would have been a much tougher team. But like the coach said, you can't count them out now just because he's not there. They're a pure example of next man up.
Right.
Next man up. Guy goes down, next man up, and so far it's been beneficial for him. I still hope Minnesota can take care of that, but I don't know. Philly come out of my division, and they've been tough all year.
Oh, wait, see that now, see now when you just said what you just said, it just reminded me why you're pulling for Minnesota. See, and I
Yeah,
had
that's
totally
right.
forgot about it until you said coming out of your division because you're a
Going out,
Cowboy fan.
Cowboy fan, and we home watching this thing on TV. So normally we'd be pulling for what. There's two things I can't pull for: Philadelphia and Washington. I got a better chance for Philadelphia. I cannot pull for Washington. I cannot go for Washington.
Yeah.
Even though they come out, I'm sorry, I just can't go with them. I just
Oh
can't do it. I
man.
just can't
Oh
be being a
man.
Duke fan. I
Well,
can't be a Duke fan.
okay, well, I'm going to be sitting here watching this game the entire time, sitting there thinking about you, that Philly, and actually, if Minnesota win this game, that'd be the first time the whole city uh,
Yes,
would be playing at home. You
in
know,
the home. That is, I really hadn't thought about that. How long it's been since you've had the host city team play in the Super Bowl.
right,
I didn't realize you had. I really hadn't even thought about that. So that would be another motivation for them going in to really, really come out and play this game as hard as they can because you're home. That's big to be home and play in the Super Bowl at home. Sleep
right.
on your own bed, practice on your own field. A lot of positives to that.
Right, yeah, because that whole thing, what they come in uh, the week because they have a week, in prep, then they come in
Mhm.
that following week. So hey, they're already there, right? I mean, they would already
You're
be
already
there,
home. Well, something to be said about sleeping in your bed every night and driving being around the things that are familiar to you every day. You're right at home. You don't have to go anywhere. You go to the same place, same routine, and then you just play on Sunday. Yeah, you can't beat that.
right? All right,
Now we got to see, is that motivation enough for them to get out there and win the game?
wow, yeah, they are supposed to have a pretty good defense too. You
They
know,
do. That,
yeah,
from what I've been hearing the talking heads say, that they got a tough defense, and they kind of proved that a little bit. It's going to be interesting. I think you may have. I even think Jacksonville is going to put up a good struggle up there, and they could possibly win that game. But I think you could be looking at two good games.
okay, all right. Well, all right. I'm Charles Morris. Nope, I always get it mixed up. That way, that way, that
That
way.
way, that way.
Vince
The
Carter.
other guy.
I'm Charles Morrison. We want to thank you for tuning in here at www.youthcentralsports. We come to you every Wednesday, 11 o'clock. He's in Tennessee, where what's the temperature? 8?
8 degrees.
It's 8 degrees, and I think it's about 50 something here. Supposed to drop down to the 30s, though. Now, high 30s, low 40s, but it's for Florida, that's cold. So, but we'll be back
Amen.
next week, and then we will talk about whether or not, well, who will be in the Super Bowl. So looking forward to that as
We'll be
well.
talking about
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Charles Morris, along with Mr. Coach Vince Carter.
it. Have a good evening.